Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, so I'll repeat what I just said. I said that nasals in general, cross-linguistically, have this tendency to not have a place of articulation in coda, which means at the end of a syllable. So the fact that these different languages have these different nasals here and also in the nunation, mimation, what we call, and stuff like that, it's not really that surprising because this is a shift that would make a lot of sense. Any other question? No? Okay. Yes.
I don't think I quite understood that with no place of articulation. Does that mean that the nasal is that it's basically just a nasal as unlike the
Nasal, like a node. So I'm not talking in the phonetic level. The phonetic level is realized with a place of articulation, or it could be. But on the phonemic level, we see it as just some kind of nasal node that usually assimilates to the following consonant. So that's why all of these also North Semitic languages don't have nun in coda before, like another consonant, they assimilate it, and all of these things.
Okay.
So yeah, nasal codas tend to lose their place of articulation, and they can also lose other features. So in Hebrew, we see this leveling and analogy. In Sabaic, we don't know the vowels, which is frustrating, and also some of the forms are just not attested, but we can see that the kaf was generalized as well. So Sabaic is Central Semitic, but it does have this South Semitic suffix conjugation, which is interesting. And it also has this yud for the duals, which is also very interesting. We don't know exactly what's going on there, but Ugaritic has something like this. Eblite has something like this, and I don't know. So some people reconstruct it as Katalai, but I don't know. I just don't know. Could be. Any question regarding the suffix conjugation so far? Okay, now modern South Arabian has a very interesting suffix conjugation. So first of all, we can see this kaf that was generalized, which is not very surprising. We see that the different plural second person have both different nasal and a different vowel, but they don't have a final vowel. Nothing here has a final vowel. So yeah, the reason this parasa versus paras is so confusing is that all of these languages lost final vowels in general. So and Akkadian also lost it in many environments. So it won't be that surprising to assume that Akkadian lost this final vowel, or that modern South Arabian lost this final vowel instead of Arabic or Ethio-Semitic adding it. But I don't know. This thing is here an allophone of kaf. So in general, in modern South Arabian and in Ethio-Semitic, in the suffix conjugation and in possessive pronouns and in the pronouns in general, this key of the second feminine singular has been palatalized completely, like as it stopped being a rule. It became just something that happens all the time, like without being noticed or thought of. I'm not sure that was clear. Any question? There's something really weird about this.
Yeah. So the cuff getting palatalized to a sh makes sense.
Yes.
Where's the labialization come from?
Oh, okay, that's a very good question. Okay, so this is not something general in Jibali. It's also complicated and not well understood. phenomenon, but in Jibali specifically, or in some dialects of Jibali and among some speakers of some ages, there's this labialization of okay, so there's an allophone of shin or of kaf, the palatalized allophone of kaf, and there's also an allophone of shin, which is this sh. It's a really weird and rare sound cross-linguistically. And it doesn't help that Jibali also has this voiced counterpart, je, which is an allophone of g, and the emphatic counterpart, sh, which is an allophone of kuf, the palatalized allophone of kuf, or the palatalized allophone of tzadi. But this is only in Jibali. All of the other modern South Arabian languages have this non-palatalized variant, which is makes just much more sense. But yeah, that's a very good question. Thank you. Anything else? So this is called syncretism. When one form, qadar, is used for different grammatical forms. Like, it's not that Jibali does not distinguish in general between third masculine singular and plural, of course. But just accidentally or somehow something happened that made these forms be the same, the third masculine singular, the third masculine plural, and the third feminine plural. And this is called syncretism, when one form represents more than one underlying form, so to say. So some kind of merger. The reason I brought more than just one modern South Arabian suffix conjugation to discuss is just this, because if I would look at this as it is, I would assume that this syncretism of qadar, he has done something, I don't know, was able or something. Qadar, sorry, they masculine and they feminine. This syncretism, I would say, okay, that's not weird at all. It's the same thing we saw in Hebrew, for example. But this one is weirder. But then, if we look, for example, at Omani Mehri, we see ktib, ktib, ktib. Sorry, this should be ktibsh with no K after the B. I'll try to fix it. Sorry. Okay. So, can everyone see again? Not yet. Now? Yeah. Oh my. Okay. So, ktib, ktib, ktibsh. Yeah, this indentation is accidental. He wrote ktub, she wrote ktibut, we wrote ktuben, you wrote masculine plural ktubkam, ktubkan, they masculine ktaub, they feminine ktub. So in all of modern South Arabian, the actual syncretism which happens is not between the two plurals, it is between the feminine plural and the masculine singular. In all of modern South Arabian and the suffix conjugation, these two forms are identical, which is very, very interesting. Of course, the fact that there's no N here also hints at the Akkadian / Ge'ez variant of Parsa, Katala, to be the more archaic one. This Ktaub ablaut thing is nice. And it also occurs in modern South Arabian in certain forms. I think we already saw something like tekotib, teketib in Mehri for the masculine and feminine second person singular in the long prefix conjugation, sorry, the ipagas. Okay, any question about that? So we can continue to Aramaic. So Syriac kind of has this vowels, but kind of doesn't really. The ones in parentheses, so they write this form with a yud at the end, which probably means that it was pronounced at some point, but they don't really read it. We can see this parentization, which is nice. Katlef, ktalt, ktalti, ktal, ktlath, ktaln, ktalton, ktaltan, ktaluktal. I love that Aramaic has this ketlath because Aramaic lost the taf of the feminine pretty much everywhere. So this is only in the suffix conjugation did Aramaic retain a final taf of the feminine, which is interesting. Because maybe I haven't said it before, but what's like if the derivation of the first and second person are related somehow to the pronouns, and the third person, they're not related to the pronouns that much. So the origin I would think of, or people think of usually for the third person ones, are just the nominal inflection or the substantive inflection, which means nothing, or this I could be accusative or something like that, but the at is just definitely the regular feminine marker. Is everything clear? Okay. Let's hope so. So, yeah, not a lot to say about this. Just a reminder that, like, if we look at the pronouns, these ana, anaku, atta, atti, we have this an something. I don't know what this is. This an element that precedes most of these pronouns, and then the suffix, which is identical to the suffix conjugation or the way we reconstruct it. So an, aku, an, ta, an, ti, an, tum, mu, an, tina. I don't know, could be anything. And then nihno is weird. I don't know. Okay. And su'a, si'a, sumu, sinna. I don't know how to derive these. That's why I'm talking about them now. But there is the thing with the S or with the sheen, and why it has changed into hey or aleph in most of Semitic. So does anyone have an idea? I think I don't remember if I said this word in the last lesson. So if you remember the name of this process where a consonant becomes a glottal.
Buccalization.
Yeah, debuccalization, exactly. Very good. It's a form of lenition. So it's not that weird. I think Spanish has it for S in some environments, or at least some kind of Spanish. Anyway, it's quite rare and weird in Semitic, but if we look at the some other morphemes, we see that this S in morphemes in general has changed into hey or aleph. So there's the conditional, which is usually reconstructed as something like simma, which is in Arabic in Hebrew im, and in Akkadian shumma. There's this terminative suffix, just, yeah, very rare, appears only in Ugaritic and Hebrew and Akkadian. but now there's been a suggestion by Butts to connect it to some forms in Aramaic and Ge'ez, which is interesting. And there's the causative, which I think I already mentioned. So this sheen. So just I try to show these morphemes just to show that it's not one phonetic environment in which this process has happened, or at least I don't think so. I think it happened in certain morphemes, which are not roots or not exactly patterns, but something less than that. Which brings me to the idea of supportive phonology, which is when a language treats differently phonologically different morphological categories, so or different syntactic categories or something like that. So there are languages, for example, in the world, like certain click languages that have every word begin with a click, or every noun or something like that. So these things are actually kind of cues that help acquisition of the language. Like when a child acquires a language, it helps, it's called supportive phonology because it helps when he has these means of distinguishing different forms. Okay, any question about that or about this weird debuccalization process that no one really knows why happened? Okay, so about that on from before, I thought it might be, or could be, or I don't know, connected to the Akkadian demonstrative, which is anni or something like that. And once again, the Akkadian system of demonstratives is slightly more heterogeneous than other languages. So Akkadian has the proximal stem anni and the distal stem ulli. So no other Semitic language has this system actually at all. So neither this nor this exists or really exists in or is productive in Semitic languages. But we see this stem ani in other places. So just like presentative particles all of a sudden or something like that. The uli, does anyone have an idea where we see it? Which is interesting. So we do see it in the demonstrative, but only in the plural demonstrative. So all of the other Semitic languages have this system, a singular dhu or something like that, dhu, da, the, with maybe an aleph at the end, maybe no, which does not exist in Akkadian. And the plural stem, that's ul or il or something like that. So probably related. Is everything clear? Any question about that before we go to example?
You mean like ula wa uli in Arabic and
Haula,
elle in Hebrew?
ulaika, yeah. Yes, exactly. Yep. So Ge'ez, for example, has the singular z, ze, and the accusative and za, and the plural alu, ella, elon. Ge'ez also has these longer forms with a noon, which could be related somehow to the noon of the anni or some kind of deictic element, and also with a taf, which we see in some places, and with a final vowel. But the final vowel does not seem that important as it uses mostly for the case system. Any question about this?
Is there any difference in semantics between these two series as far as we can tell?
Well, not that I know of, but I can check. Yeah, coincidentally, I have this book right here. I don't remember which page, but maybe, I don't think if there were a difference, it would be in semantics. I would assume something a little bit more like a difference in, say, stress or prosody or something like that, because, well, that seems to be the difference. But okay, classical Ethiopic has a second paradigm that expresses near deixis, which consists of longer independent forms. So they also have their own stress. I guess that would be a major difference, because the other one is more of a clitic. A clitic, by the way, is some kind of morpheme or element that is kind of like glued unelegantly to the following or preceding element. So it's not a morpheme that we see as beautifully independent. It's just like more something that got stuck on somewhere. I don't know if that was very clear, but it's like extremely not independent. So that's a clitic. Usually it's some kind of morpheme that was contracted or something like that. Any other question? That was a good question, because we're also gonna see some more of these. No? Okay. So this is Mehri, Omani Mehri. And we have, once again, this double system of the shorter and longer ones. So ذي, I don't know, ذومه, ذيمه, اليومه. But once again, the same stems, the and al. Any question? In Hopiot, just for reference, because I rarely ever speak on this language, and it has Japanese glosses in this dictionary, so for some people to enjoy. Or I don't know what this is, Chris. Maybe you can correct me. I'm sorry, I thought it was Japanese glosses.
Yeah, it's Japanese, but in Japanese there are three this demonstrative three sets of demonstrative
Okay.
pronouns.
Yeah. Well, as you can see in Hopiot, there are just two, but it's also quite nice. There's near and very near. That's the distinction that Nakano gives here. But it's also long and very long, actually. So there is no the or something like that, like we saw in Mehre. Instead, there's the dane, dine, lane, and diane, diine, lione, or liowe, which, from what I've heard, the latter is thought to be historically a diminutive, which makes sense. Or it does not really make sense, but I know that Arabic has like a diminutive of after, bu'aida, instead of ba'da, for slightly after or something like that. So really, really close. I don't know. Any question? I'm sorry about the transcriptions of Nakano. They are horrific. Okay. And in Arabic, we have هذا, هذه, هؤلاء, which is just exactly the same. We also see this ha, which could be also related. So if we take this anni or an or something like that, and we split it onto two different elements, we have the hey or the aleph, and we have the nun, and both of them are many times added onto these forms, compiled even. Okay.
In Arabic, sorry, in Arabic we have ula without ha. We
Yes,
called
yes.
ha
Right.
tanbih.
You also have tha and dhihi, but yeah, these are like the regular, the most common forms. I don't know.
Exactly.
You're right. You're right. So this is once again a table from Moscati for comparison. So we can see that all of the West Semitic languages have this the or de or ze in the singular and the el in the plural or ul or something like that, while Akkadian has a completely different system. Okay, any question? It's also nice that there's no, like, in Gez, there's this aluntu, elantu, which I don't know, it's supposed to be a gender distinction, but all the other languages don't seem to have that at all, which is weird because Semitic languages have gender distinction everywhere. So, interesting. Any question? We also see here examples from Phoenician and Aramaic. Okay. In Sabaic, we have this nun also in Aramaic. We have Hana. That's maybe closest to Anu. No questions. Nothing. Okay, fine. We'll go on. So, and this is just for reference, the modern South Arabian form. So there's almost all of the languages has a short form and a long form. Some of them have even 3 forms. Okay. And we remember that Sokotri or mainland Sokotri has no interdentals, but all the other ones have them. Here we can also see the distal and the remote systems with a kaf, which is also completely foreign to Akkadian, but we're not going to talk about that today. This is in the other languages. Also, you can see that kaf and the remote, zuku, zukwa, dik, dikim, but not all of the languages have this. For example, Hebrew does not have it. I guess neither does Sabaic or
Is like that, dhaka in Arabic.
Sorry?
Like dhaka.
Dhaka, yeah, exactly. Dhaka, dhalika, yep, dhalika, yep. Dhaka, dhalika. Yeah, in Arabic also you can add this ka to a lot of like hunaka and so on for remote. Hunaka means there, while huna means here. So once again, this presentative, hey, noon, something. Okay. And what is interesting is that in addition to a demonstrative, the same stem, or pretty much the same stem, is also the stem of the West Semitic relative marker. Okay, so in Akkadian we have sha, which could or could not be connected to this, I don't know. And in some of the languages we also have sha, we have something similar to that in Canaanite and in Ethio-Semitic. But in all of the languages, no exception, we also have these the forms. So in modern South Arabian has the everywhere. Some of the languages have la instead, but I don't know why. Sokotri di. All of modern old South Arabian, the exact same, thu, the, something like that. Gez has za. Arabic has longer forms with geminate L, but in general, the, thani, thaini. And this tough for the feminine, which is interesting. Hebrew has ze, zu, but these are very, very old forms, archaic forms for the relative marker. It does not exist in anywhere after early biblical Hebrew.
Just a question about the zoo. Is it really zoo, or isn't that rather the so it should be zo, because zoo is a relative pronoun.
I'm talking about the relative.
Oh, so sorry.
Yeah.
So what about ze then?
Yeah, here, zezu.
Yeah, no, but okay.
Both of them exist as a relative marker and as a demonstrative.
Okay.
Yep.
So how come then this weird mix up then in Hebrew for demonstrate?
It's not such a weird mix-up because as
No, because people nowadays usually perceive it as some kind of higher register to say zu.
instead of zo,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a higher register. It's the Ashkenazi tradition. I don't know exactly where it came from, but it obviously comes from the same.
No, I mean, because all the time, like Benny Gantz always, when he wants to speak, like he always uses zu.
Yeah, many Ashkenazi Hebrew speakers do that. True.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
No problem. Thank you for commenting. And it's nice that in Ugaritic we actually have a nice inflection of it. We think this is du and da or something like that, and duty or something like that. Okay. So the far demonstratives, as I said, Akkadian has this ul, which has become the plural demonstrative in all the other languages, and all the other languages have this kaf in general. I already showed dek diken in Aramaic, so here these forms are probably not connected, but I don't know. Any question about this? Nothing? All right. Okay, so just to name some terms that I've used so far regarding morphological processes. So analogy is when one form takes after another form, when it shouldn't have or historically shouldn't have done that. And paradigmatic leveling is, it could be analogy, it could be something else, but it's when a paradigm is leveled, well, when it is made more transparent through regular or over regularities, so to say, so generalizations. Some other morphological phenomena that I would love to mention is suppletion. So for example, if we look at these forms of the demonstrative, we see a suppletive system, which means, or at least in West Semitic, which means that there's a different stem inflecting in each. So a suppletive paradigm is a paradigm that actually consists of more than just one paradigm, or more than one historical paradigm. So for example, in English, go, went, there's no connection between these two morphemes, or here in the z and l, there's no connection between these two morphemes, but they are used in one paradigm. So that is called suppletion, or a suppletive paradigm. Was that clear? Any question? Okay. And I think the next thing I'm going to talk about is called markedness. So I'm going to open a Word file. So has anyone heard of markedness before? Or the markedness theory, or markedness hierarchy? No? No one? Really? Okay, it's an important concept in linguistics, or theory, or thumb rule, once again. It consists of 3 elements, which I will try to explain while my Word file opens. So in general, these 3 elements are not intuitively connected, but the theory is connecting them. So the first element is frequency within the world's languages. So something is more marked if it is less frequent in the world's languages. For example, if 60% of the world's languages have L and only 6% have S, then L is less marked than S. Was that clear? Or S is more marked than L. The second one is frequency within a language. So every language that has both these segments, but this doesn't have to be segments. It could be morphemic structures. It could be a syllable structure. It could be a syntactic feature. It could be anything. So a language that has both of these, for example, L and Th, would have more L than Sh. Sh has to be rarer in general in languages and in specific languages that have it. Was that clear? The third element is acquisition. So children acquire more marked segments later than they acquire less marked segments. So I would expect a child to typically acquire Sh after it acquires L. Was that clear? Is everything clear? Any question about the theory of markedness? I will just write everything down to make it even more clear. So the first one is frequency. What language am I writing? Wait. We might have a forced break soon. I apologize in advance. So the first one would be frequency in the world's languages. The second one would be frequency within a language. And the third one is the acquisition. Okay, so the fourth and like kind of summary of this theory is the hierarchy. So if X is more marked than Y, I would expect a language to have X only if it has Y. Okay, so a language that has Sh would typically have L, not only because L is more common, but because L is less marked. And if you have a more marked category, you need to have the less marked category as well. If a language has 3 genders, or no, maybe that's not a good example, but if a language has, if a language has a dual, then it must have a plural, because a plural is a less marked category than a dual. And I don't think that there are languages, or I would not expect that there to be languages that have a dual but no plural. Is that clear? Okay, I'm really happy to hear. So that was the theory of markedness. It's a very important notion because in general, I expect languages to try to be less marked or to try to have less marked structures. But then rises the question, if I would expect a language to only move in the direction of being less marked, why are languages so complicated? So why do languages just don't become simpler and simpler over time?
I think they do.
Well, but they don't. We just saw the paradigms from all these different languages from different time periods, and they have pretty much the same paradigm. Like they go through processes, but it's not necessarily processes that make them simpler. Amharic, for example, is really complicated, at least for me. I like so much more complicated